Hey, what's up guys? Chris.mortee here. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my own personal journey with rheumatoid arthritis, looking all the way back at when my symptoms started to when I was officially diagnosed, the treatments I've tried over the years, all the struggles I faced along the way, and finally, how I was able to reverse my symptoms, get off medication, and transition into my current role as an RA coach. I know that most of you who have followed me for a while know that I help RA patients to reverse their symptoms naturally. But perhaps you hadn't heard my own RA story, so I thought it could be useful to share that with you today. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you want to see even more content, follow my socials. The links are in the video description below. And be sure to stick around until the end of the video because I'm going to be talking about the biggest turning point in my journey. Specifically, one major change that I made to my diet that really kickstarted my progress. So stick around so that you don't miss that bit. Okay, so let's go right back to when it all started. My symptoms of RA started in 2016 when I was just 24 years old. At the time, I was a personal trainer and I was in pretty great shape. I loved powerlifting and boxing. I was actually in the first month of preparing for an amateur boxing match. So I was fit, strong, I wasn't carrying any excess body fat, I ate pretty healthily most of the time, and I certainly considered myself to be a healthy person. So as you can imagine, the whole thing was just such a big shock to me at the time. The pain started suddenly in my upper back, and within a few weeks, it had spread to almost every joint in my body. Even the most minor movement of my arms would cause the sharpest and most excruciating pain in my shoulders. It was horrible. And it got to the point where I couldn't even do the simplest tasks like washing myself in the shower or brushing my teeth became this mammoth event. Some days, my ankles hurt so badly that I could barely get out of bed. Like, I remember sitting on the edge of my bed most mornings and thinking, how on earth am I going to make it to the shower today? Because it felt like my ankles were going to collapse. My jaw was so stiff, I couldn't even chew my food in the morning. Sometimes I legitimately couldn't open my mouth wide enough to even put food in. I would struggle to sit down on the toilet or put my shoes on to go to work. It felt like everything I did was just painful and exhausting. And there was certainly no chance of boxing or powerlifting anymore. I had to stop exercising pretty much altogether, and that really crushed me because exercising is my favorite thing to do. And since I couldn't exercise and I could barely open my mouth wide enough to eat, I began losing muscle mass quickly. And in the space of a few months, I went from this to this. After waiting for months, I finally got my appointment to see the rheumatologist and was formally diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And my rheumatologist explained to me that this disease was causing my own immune system to attack my joints, that there is no cure for rheumatoid arthritis, and that in order to slow down the progression of this disease, I needed to take medication, probably for the rest of my life. And if left untreated, the disease would cause irreversible damage to my joints. Now, I have a pretty long family history of autoimmune disease, so I probably should have seen this coming. My dad has Hashimoto's thyroiditis, my aunt is a type 1 diabetic, my other aunt has lupus, and my grandfather has hemochromatosis. And now, I was officially the newest member of the club. But despite my extensive family history of chronic illness, I didn't see it coming at all. I remember leaving the rheumatologist's office that day and thinking, this doesn't make any sense. I'm so young, I'm so fit, I'm so healthy. I'm a health and fitness coach. I'm the guy that people came to when they wanted to improve their health. This can't be happening to me. But it was happening to me. It was very real and the pain was unbearable. It appeared I had only two options. Option 1, I take the medication. Or option 2, I live the rest of my life in unbearable pain and probably end up crippled before I turn 30. So, reluctantly, I began my treatment, which consisted of prednisone and hydroxychloroquine, which I took daily, and methotrexate, which I took weekly. And to my amazement, the treatment really did help me to feel better. Within, I'd say, a week, the pain was significantly reduced. But it came at a cost, because the side effects that I experienced whilst taking those medications were horrible. The biggest problem that I can recall, which started almost immediately, was that I just couldn't get to sleep. Sometimes it took me like 3 or 4 hours to fall asleep. In fact, some nights I didn't sleep at all. I remember on so many occasions getting into bed and lying there wide awake until my alarm went off for work in the morning. Then, after just a few weeks, the migraines kicked in. It's hard to explain what a migraine feels like if you've never had one. Mine would always start with me losing my vision. That's sort of how I knew, like, right, now I'm about to have a migraine. Then the pressure right behind my eyes would start building, and it just wouldn't stop. It felt like my brain was expanding and pressing outwards into my skull. And it was just as painful as it sounds. That happened a few times a month and would last anywhere from 1 to 2 days each time. I put the migraines and the lack of sleep down to the prednisone. But out of all the drugs I took, there was none that I hated taking more than the methotrexate. I used to take my methotrexate every Monday, and every Monday I would have this horrible taste lingering in the back of my throat that would sometimes last until Tuesday afternoon. I would feel so sick, like I wanted to vomit, and a lot of times I did vomit. Methotrexate felt completely toxic to me, like my body was rejecting it and trying to get it out of my system. So granted, the medications temporarily solved the pain problem, but they had created 3 new problems in the process. Then, after a few months of treatment, my rheumatologist told me that it was time I came off the prednisone. And when I did, the pain came back almost immediately and with a vengeance. I was officially back to square one, but worse, because this time I was in pain and I was dealing with the side effects of methotrexate. Then, one Monday when it was time to take my methotrexate, I stopped and asked myself, if I'm in this much pain now, why am I bothering to take these pills? If all they do is make me feel sick and don't make me feel any better, what's the point in taking them? And in that moment, I decided enough was enough. I was done taking medication, and I never took another RA medication again. Now, I want to make it super clear that this is absolutely not the way that I recommend anyone to come off their medications. And stopping your medications abruptly, like I did, can cause massive problems. It can cause your pain levels to spiral out of control, and it can actually hinder your ability to heal. There is a step-by-step process to getting off your medication safely, which I explain in more detail inside my 10-week program. But unfortunately, at this point in my journey, I didn't have a step-by-step process. But I knew that if I was done taking medication, I needed to find another way to reduce my pain. If I wasn't going to leave this up to the rheumatologist any longer, I needed to do something about it myself. So over the next few months, I tried everything I could think of. Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic treatment, yoga, meditation, aromatherapy, acupuncture. I met with chiropractors, osteopaths, physical therapists, massage therapists, posture specialists, you name it. And I tried every supplement that I could get my hands on. But my efforts brought me no real luck. There might have been a slight improvement here and there, but for the most part, everything still hurt the same. I was so close to just giving up when a friend of mine convinced me to watch this Netflix documentary called What the Health. It's quite a popular documentary, but if you haven't seen it, the story follows a group of people with various conditions: diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, and yes, you guessed it, rheumatoid arthritis. And during the documentary, many of these patients switched from their regular diets and started eating healthy, whole food, plant-based diets. And to my amazement, they all started getting better. The people suffering from obesity were losing weight. The people with high blood pressure were lowering their blood pressure. The people with diabetes were reversing their diabetes. And the RA patients were reversing their RA. Now, up until this point, I hadn't explored changing my diet much, mainly because my rheumatologist had me convinced that diet and rheumatoid arthritis were totally unrelated. But after hearing these people's stories in the documentary, I had to try it. So the very next day, I removed all animal products from my diet. Instead of eating meat, I was eating beans and tofu. And instead of drinking cow's milk, I drank almond milk. I stopped going to Nando's, which was my favourite place to eat back then. And after just a couple of weeks, my joint pain decreased significantly. Now, I'm not saying that I reversed my rheumatoid arthritis in just a couple of weeks, but it was a night and day difference compared to anything else I tried. My swollen joints didn't look or feel swollen anymore. The joints that felt hot and inflamed still felt stiff, but that real overwhelming feeling of inflammation was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I had a glimmer of hope. So I turned all my efforts towards diet. I started reading nutrition books. Then I moved on to functional medicine books, books about healing chronic diseases. I would pull up research papers on PubMed and sit there for hours trying to make sense of it all. I still do this from time to this day. At one point, I had almost quit my job as a personal trainer so that I could focus on reversing rheumatoid arthritis full time. My only goal at that time was to learn more about diet and rheumatoid arthritis so that I could get my life back. Nothing else in the world mattered to me. It was my obsession. And as I continued my new diet, I continued to see improvements. Each week I'd feel a little bit better than I did the week before. And honestly, I was just the happiest man in the world. To have your life turned completely upside down like that and manage to find your way back. And the realization with every passing day, wow, this is actually working. I'm actually getting better. It was euphoric. Hard to put into words. Now, it wasn't all smooth sailing. My healing journey lasted about 2 years. And there were plenty of bumps in the road. Times where I plateaued. Times where I had to rethink my approach. Times where I nearly gave up. And in the end, it wasn't just diet, but so many other lifestyle changes that I made that are responsible for where I am today. Now, I have no RA symptoms. No swelling, no pain, and no markers of inflammation or antibodies present in my blood work. I do not take any medication whatsoever, and I feel healthier now, both in my joints and overall, than I did before I was diagnosed. I'm back to working out every day, powerlifting and boxing, and I love it. And having been through that journey, I decided to use my experience as a coach to help someone like you who is going through the same thing, and to make this process a smoother, easier ride than it was for me. And since I started my online program in 2019, I've been able to help over 1,000 RA patients from more than 30 different countries to make some of the most incredible transformations, much like my own, which I must say has been extremely fulfilling for me because I know how rough living with RA is. So I found a real purpose sharing this information with other RA patients, coaching them and watching them progress. If you would like to see testimonials from some of the RA patients that I've been able to help, please head over to my website. I'll leave a link in the video description below. And if you would like to learn more about working with me, the link to join my program is also down in the video description. That's it for this video, guys. Make sure you smash the like button if you haven't already and ring the bell so that you get notified every time I post a video. Follow my other socials and let me know in the comments what kind of videos you'd like to see me post next. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Have you experienced any of the same challenges as me? Have you already had success reversing your RA like I have? Tell me about your RA story down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.